So before we get started, I was supposed to speak a few words about SecurityBricks. So I'm going to just introduce who we are. So SecurityBricks is a company that we got acquired in December 2024. Seems like time for a company called Aprio. But I was in the cybersecurity space and compliance. And to me, frankly, why I like it is because CMMC was new to me at that time. I was doing other security stuff, and we have a lot of veterans. So we started partnering with the DoD on SkillBridge program. And we have a lot of veterans, and we figured we got to get them here to train them to do something in cyber. And one of the veterans said, Raj, there's something called, because we were already accredited to be a FedRAMP 3PO, which took a lot of our energy and time and money. And then CMMC came on, and they said, you should do CMMC. I said, why? They go, it's good. I said, okay. So we started a journey in 2021, 22, and some of the veterans said, oh, you should do this. Okay, so we did. 23, we became a C3PO. And actually, some of our CCAs are veterans. We thank you for the service, and we also feel like we might transition them to a career in cybersecurity. So perfect. So we did that, and then, like all of you small businesses, I also took a plunge in CMMC, and hopefully November 10th I get an ROI. Hopefully. But we just got acquired by Aprio, which is a firm that's based in Atlanta, an exciting firm that does a lot of different audits. So I was asked to speak about enclaves, and I know the presenter on your books is supposed to be somebody from Microsoft, but I thought I'll just speak about, I think the other gentleman from Comply already spoke about enclaves, so I'm just going to try to talk a little, at least take a different angle, right? So, I don't know where my presentations are. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, can't see this though. I need the other mic.
And then here we go. Here's your click left.
I need another mic. I can't see it.
Oh. I'm gonna pull this guy off if you want.
Oh, thanks. So, what's an enclave? Somebody said it's like a ADU. I call it different. It's like a secure facility within your company. So think of it like a SCIF, if you guys know what a SCIF is. So you go in there, you have these controls, and only certain authorized people are supposed to go in there, do some work, and come out. So we look at that, an enclave will be that. An enclave can be anything. It can be a room, a physical location, a cloud, a data center, any of that. So a lot of people think enclave means Microsoft. Nah, it's enclave is anything that's where you can do secure computing and or secure process, transmit, store, CY. That's the way we look at enclave. It's a segregated environment, not just with computers and compute, but also users, and essentially the people who are authorized to do that work, and so they get in. So I used this earlier in my presentation, and I'm very big fan of this. In fact, people asked me at break today about JVs and etc. I'm a big proponent of determine what your contract requirements are and align with your business. Don't do technology first. Go there first. So which is, if I have this cage code and I have this contract, is that the right one? I should go in and get my CMMC accreditation. I think that's the first one. Second, what's your business requirement? What type of CUI handle, and not just IT. So I think that's the second one. Third, scope. There's a reason why. Enclaves can create friction. There's no doubt about it. And I'll talk in a minute what it means. It can create friction. So be prepared that you need to make sure your user experience, the people actually making money, are able to make money for you and not give them more friction that they say, oh my God, I got to log in and I have another email and etc. etc. So I'm not saying you got to balance it, right? Because the end users, it's not IT who's doing the work, it's those end users who are making money for you. The third is significant change. I don't think we spoke a lot about it, but in CMMC, like anything else, like FedRAMP world, if you get accredited with a certain boundary and you make some change to it, maybe you add a change in technology, or maybe you introduce, other facilities or other computer environments, doesn't matter. It will force a significant change. So that's something you want to be key. That's why we talk so much critically about scoping, because what you get accredited is what you can actually process, transmit, and store CUI. So that is something you want to make sure. Because a lot of people think I'll build an enclave and I'm done. Not really. make sure there's no other CUI, because if you just do that after you get accredited, you may have to do a significant change at some point. So that's another one, which means you're starting all over. So there is the need again is making sure that enclaves are something that you want to do. It's another. I'll give you an example. So we work with small to large firms, right? And I think a few people before spoke about. I have this entire company. I don't want to bring them under CMMC boundary or CUI boundary. So I'm going to do a small portion. Great. Now, if those people are not going to be touching CUI, great. You can build this small environment for them to handle. But what happens is that going to ensure that what is the function they're going to do? For example, let's take type of work you do. So people typically will do Office 365, right? So So we'll go through benefits, but before that, so typically people do. I want to go in and I say, what do you want to do? What's your contract say? Well, I exchange files with my Prime or my DoD. Great. I need SharePoint. I need Teams. I need email. That's it. You got Office 365. You're good to go. Do that. Fine. Well, I also do work. I run some services on the cloud. I have some web servers, SQL, Kubernetes. I do some compute. I develop software. I do AutoCAD. Great. Then you have an Azure cloud or AWS cloud or GCP government. And again, those are all compute. Or you can have a data center. Or you can have a hybrid. All those are enclaves. All those are part of your boundary, right? So the reason Microsoft keeps coming up is, we do work with Microsoft, but so just to give you a little bit on where I finished on SecurityBricks, we help from readiness all the way to 3PO. So we can do any of that. But in the middle, we also started automating. So we launched an accelerator that's in the Microsoft Marketplace. I think that's the only one still there. That you actually can download and run. It'll validate your GCC implementation. Doesn't matter who implemented it. You can run it. So we also automate. Now, why did we choose Microsoft and not AWS when we do work with others? We talked to a lot of people, and a lot of contractors say, most of the time our emails are Microsoft Office. We have seen some Google, and that's the only thing I think we have seen for Office suites. So by default, it becomes Microsoft O365. And it becomes O365, you've got E3, E5, all kinds of licenses and stuff like that. You can purchase them. They're not cheap. I think the difference between a commercial and a E5 is probably 10 times the price, maybe. Or E3 is probably half the price, I'm not sure. But long story short, they're expensive, but then they can handle your CUI. That's what Microsoft invested in them. They have their FedRAMP versions. They can do that. So it's off your table when it comes to your responsibility matrix, etc., which we'll speak to. Now, if you turn to compute, you have options. You can do GCC, GCC High, you can do AWS Gov, any of those, because they're all FedRAMP, moderate. Now, you also can do your own data center. We have a lot of customers who run compute on their own data centers. Why? Because they do work that's very specialized. They have equipment they test on, drones, etc., that they have to do. So they have we go in and assess and work on their entire facility that are on-site data ground. Now, some of them will have a combination. So all these are part of what we call enclave. But why do people say we want to an enclave? I think a gentleman spoke earlier. Reduce your CUI footprint. Great. Faster to set up. Total cost of compliance is much easier and cheaper, and also it's easy to maintain. And so I think the enclave does give you the benefits. The reason I want to play devil's advocate is, people think enclave is an option to get. I go get GCC, I'm compliant. No, it's not. I think there's a lot of misconception of people, and while Microsoft's done a lot of work and others have invested, I think it's also up to the contractor to say what's their best option. So we talked a little bit about this. GCC, GCC, AWS, GCP, hybrid. So someone asked me 2 questions today. They said, what's the difference between GCC and GCCH? So it depends. So for example, as you know, Microsoft Commercial cannot handle CUI, right? Only GCC and GCCH are FedRAMP authorized. So GCC because of the ITAR and other requirements, it's managed in the US by US personnel. Everything is in the US. So that's number one benefit, it's also expensive. GCC, on the other hand, can be managed by people outside the US. So if you happen to use GCC, you may get a support person outside the US, and so it's on your, as a contractor's responsibility to make sure that you're not sharing data with that people. So it's a little complicated. But both of them are completely capable. So someone else asked, if I get GCC, do I have to do more work in the SSP than GCCH? Not really. The controls are different. Yes, GCCH has much more from a responsibility matrix and shared, responsibility matrix and other things. They're GCCH has much more inherited controls. And we'll talk. How many of you know what inherited controls is? I'm going to speak. Great, fabulous. So, just what inherited controls is three things, right? If I go to, this is just like if you go to a hosted, like a Rackspace or any of them, similar to cloud. There is three things, which is what I own, what I share, and what I inherit. And I think there's a slide here. Let me see if there is. There it is. Okay. So if you look at this is a responsibility matrix for one of the, I think it's for Microsoft, yes. So if you notice, the on-prem, you are responsible for everything as a contractor. If it's IaaS, they're responsible for infrastructure. If it's platform service, you see that. So the more you shift to the cloud provider or somebody else, the lesser for you to get compliant with, the faster to comply and much easier to maintain. But there is a price. Why? Because the more you shift to them, they're going to charge you more. So the question is, do you want to have your people do it, or like somebody said, I'll pay the extra $500 for somebody else to do it. That's fine too. So this is a very important one. So when you guys consider scoping a boundary, building an enclave, doesn't matter who it is, you want to make sure that what is it that you want to do. I also urge you to take a look at your internal IT staff. CMMC can strain and stress the IT staff. I can't say that enough. There are also not many, there are quite a few qualified people, but unfortunately everybody's, comes at a price. So the question really is, how do you want to balance who do you want to do it? So that's kind of important. So, since it was a Microsoft slot, so I got to speak a little bit about Microsoft. So here it is, what we talked about. Microsoft basically has invested a lot of money in the FedRAMP journey, so they have all them at FedRAMP. They call GCC. And again, this based on what you want to do, this is how they offer GCC, GCCH, O365, Azure Compute. All this is available. And again, these ones are expensive. They're compute cost. So every time you click, there's a dollar that goes up. So these are again compute costs. Of course, people have told me that it's cheaper than maintaining a data center. So that could be true too. So this is GCCGH, just a summary of what we talked. I only put some there, so obviously there's not more than this. I just thought, okay? So here's a FedRAMP body of evidence. So you guys can go through, because this is important. When you, let's say it's Microsoft or AWS, they're going to give you some data, which is called the FedRAMP body of evidence. So when we, let's say we go on to a FedRAMP 3P audit, somebody went through an equivalency, they get a body of evidence that you can give it to a contractor. Then the contractor has to take that, fill their SSP saying these things are provided by this third party, and then send it to the C3PO. The C3PO then will validate that you have implemented the way the FedRAMP body of evidence tells you to do, and once it's validated, you as a contractor then get your accreditation. So it's very key, because I've seen a lot of people tell me, oh, we use the FedRAMP version. True, but have you configured and made sure that the intent of those were actually met? If not, you're not going to meet that FedRAMP. You're not going to be able to use a body of evidence. So that's key. So the more, this is where the shared and inherited comes. All these will provide us and help with the SSP, it will help with your documentation. Unfortunately, all this is not publicly available. I think Mike said today, these are very secretive. You have to, I'm sure, Joy will tell you that. Every customer has to go and get this on their own, even though you may get it from Enclave providers. So they have to go get this, and they have to show. So some of the CRM some of the other reports that have to actually come directly from Microsoft to you. Just like if you want to get a GCC license, they actually have to show that you have your cage code, they have to authorize you, then only you can even get a license. So they go through a lot of friction process, but that's because they want to make sure that who you are and what the intent of using it. But that's the FedRAMP body of evidence that's available. I think this is my clicker. If you want, this is the QR code, and this is kind of where you can email them to get a body of evidence, and then, so this is some of the information from Microsoft. So again, just, I want to make sure that you guys understand from an Enclave perspective, it's good, but there's another couple of things on Enclave too. So I think my presentation is done. Yes, thank you. So on Enclave, I have a couple of things on Enclave. The first thing is that, people ask me if I'm a small business, right, and I implement an Enclave, what do I do day to day, right? What do I do? And if you look at it, first, for example, this is good. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. So first, you have to make sure that if I'm having a .us and a .com email, right? So let's say that I decided that I have a 100 people company, but 15 people decided to get a .us, which is their gov email, right? They're going to work on CY. So now, those 15 people may have two email addresses. Why? One, if they go and do CY, they'll use that email and that credential. But if they access the corporate for timesheet travel, they use the other one. So automatically now we are creating two. Then companies tell me, no, I want single identity. Great. If all your users become .us, because that's your primary, now what about people who have to go into another environment, because now you have more restrictions. So you're automatically creating friction if you decide you want to do this Enclave. Now, if you're doing a cloud Enclave. So on a day-to-day, if you're a small company, these are things you want to watch for. Because I've always told people, tell me, I want to have one single email, or I want to have another email, but I want to make sure people don't send me an email from my .com that has CY by mistake to somebody. So there's all these things that you have to educate them. Again, pros and cons. No answer is right answer. It's your business, how you want to do it, and I highly encourage you to take a look at it. I think all of us here will provide you the education, but ultimately, how does it matter? As I said, cage code, user friction, business. Somebody else told me the federal contracting officers, somebody made a comment. I don't think any federal contract officer really cares. All they say is, I want to bid an RFP. Do we have a CMMC level 2? Is it in EMAS? That's all. They don't care if it's Enclave, it's on-site, frictionless. Doesn't matter. I just want to bid and make money. So, end of the day, I think that's kind of how we approach it. So, that's all I have. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.